that's why I'm so excited about LawSphere, because I'm looking for community. I think community is the future,
I
and
agree.
picking and choosing the right groups of subcategorized intelligence and capabilities really has assisted me, and I want to assist other people with those that have supported me, like you and Mike as well.
I just wanted to thank you guys for joining me. We're here today to talk about LawSphere. So, for people who don't know, LawSphere is a new online community for lawyers, lawyers only, and it's both a social and a professional community. And the way we're kicking things off is by using groups. And one of the first groups that we've started is the sports law group. And so I'm super honored to have some fellow Tulane Law graduates with me today. I can't believe we've got three people here who went to Tulane Law. And we all took very different paths, right? So I wanted to first start off with Dave. If you would tell people your background, you graduate from law school, and you had a couple roles, but one of your initial roles was working for Lee Steinberg. If you kind of tell people about that.
Yeah, it was really funny because I went to Tulane thinking with Dean Roberts there that I was interested in sports. I played college sports. Tout that I was a below average college football player, and that was confirmed by my coach. But I love football. And beyond that, though, I thought there's a possibility that may be a professional pursuit of mine, but I really needed money and I didn't have the security and confidence in myself that patiently I would put the effort in to be a great sports lawyer or a front office executive. And so I pursued money by working for Westlaw and learning about technology in its early stages. And because of the exit of Westlaw to Thomson Reuters, I learned about venture capital, pursued that up in the Silicon Valley, and continued to pursue venture and technology until one day Lee Steinberg tells me that he's looking for a new CEO. Jeff Morad had bought into the Diamondbacks. They had exited their baseball practice with Asante up in Canada, and that he couldn't find someone with my background that had a higher level of skill in technology and venture with a law background and a sports background. And so, how I got to be the CEO of the most notable sports agency in the world without really being a sports agent or ever really practicing law was that Lee's vision in the early 2000s. And he's always been a visionary, as you know. That's how they made the movie Jerry Maguire about him. He thought the future of sports was in venture capital and technology. And I think Mike Tannenbaum will tell you Lee Steinberg 20 years ago was absolutely correct and made a lucky choice, maybe a bad choice, but picked me to be the CEO because of that.
Oh,
Or
stop.
or a great choice.
A
Or a
great
great
choice.
choice. I loved it.
Yeah. So, I mean, and then you went on to start Sports One Marketing with Warren Moon. So,
Yes. And,
and
and
of course,
Warren was a client and a partner of mine at least. So it was a natural transition or expansion to understand how marketing and media would be applied to what we knew in sports agentry.
so you did all of that. And then I want people to be aware that like how your career just took off. So now you're, for people who aren't familiar, I mean, you've just built this whole following. You now an internationally recognized entrepreneur, investor, and you're now the chairman of the Napoleon Hill Institute. So congratulations on all that.
Thank you so much. Well, it takes people like you and Mike who have not only encouraged but supported me, given me opportunities and options, and really helped to build the community of people that we have. And that's why I'm so excited about LawSphere, because I'm looking for community. I think community is the future,
I
and
agree.
picking and choosing the right groups of subcategorized intelligence and capabilities really has assisted me. And I want to assist other people with those that have supported me, like you and Mike as well.
Yeah. So, Mike, you also have a fascinating journey. I mean, you guys have the best backstories. So, you're now an analyst on the NFL for ESPN, which is the job that we'd all love to have. So,
Be careful
how
what you
did you
ask
get
for,
there?
Carrie. Be careful what you ask for.
My story started at Tulane as well. I was at Tulane in the early 90s with Dave. Went there because of Gary Roberts. And my story is one of incredible luck. Right place at the right time. I was working for free for the New Orleans Saints. And a once in a 75-year event happened with the NFL where they had work stoppages with the PA. And they came up with this comprehensive settlement after strikes in 76, 82, 87. And basically players finally got cost certainty in the form of salary cap, and owners got the salary cap, players got free agency, And that was the fundamental quid pro quo. And I sat there as a fly on the wall, driving people to the airport, and was able to take great notes. I put a book together on how to build a team after the first 18 months of this new transformational world. Again, 75 years. If you were a player, you were with the team, there was plan B, but basically this finally gave players free agency. And it wasn't about who you were picking in as much as the strategic idea of team building. I was very lucky that Bill Belichick hired me in Cleveland in 95 and worked my way up there, got a chance to run a couple of teams, and all started with Tulane Law School. And I love the idea of LawSphere. And let me tell you why. I've been involved with an organization called the Sports Lawyers Association, which is ironically administered through Tulane Law School. And I will tell you that our industry needs more of these sorts of community tribes, a tight-knit group of people that you can exchange ideas with. I do think sports law is its own discipline, and I think this is a tremendous idea.
Thank you. Well, one of the things we haven't, I wanted to get people to know about is that we will be rolling out subgroups in the next couple of weeks. So within the sports law group, you can create private and public groups. So you could have a private group on, say, CTE, where you only want certain lawyers to be having that conversation, or you could have a public group on private equity in sports. So you can have subgroups within the group, and that's something that'll be rolling out in the future in a couple of weeks. So the reason we're here is also to talk about emerging sports law issues. And as I say, the headlines are giving us plenty to talk about. There's a lot happening. And the first thing I wanted to ask you guys about was that this House settlement that people keep talking about. Supposedly they started this new app called NIL Go. And the latest headline I saw was that there was a huge backlog as far as, people not getting their NIL agreements approved. So much so that a bunch of collectives have said, we're just going to avoid it and not play. So what's going to happen? And also only 30% of agreements are even being put into this app. So if you have all these people who aren't buying into the settlement and aren't participating, how's that going to play out?
Yeah, I'll take that one first. So, it's funny, we talk a lot to students and nobody mentors or motivates people like Dave and leads them. And I would just say that 2024-ish and 1993-ish is really a lot of parallels between where pro football was with this once in a 75-year event and where college sports is post House settlement. And what I mean by that is with the 33rd team, we talk a lot about how there's pro football Saturday and there's pro football Sunday. And in pro football Saturday, there's recruiting and scholarships and the transfer portal. Pro football Sunday has, amongst other things, the draft and free agency. And if you're looking to work in sports from a law student standpoint, I don't think there's ever been a better time in the history of the world than right here, right now, because the jobs that are being created, the consultancies, the questions are being asked. Carrie Lowe, you're just talking about, NIL Go, that's just one small piece of the entire ecosystem. And I think everybody is learning, and I think we all know, like, this is the new normal and in my opinion, rightfully so, that college athletes are getting paid, but how they get paid, how much, is there this, sort of like ecosystem out there that has checks and balances? All those things are going to take years to sort out. So it's a fascinating time to be interested or working in and around, this new paradigm.
Yeah, it's like the wild, wild west.
Yep.
It is. It's very much like the prohibition. Nobody wants to enforce anything. So you're going to have a very difficult time. In fact, NIL itself took a long time. And I always say things take a long time, then happen all of a sudden. Well, so will the regulations and enforcements and the clarifications and codification of the rules. And the House committee can do, say, think, and feel whatever they want to. But until the parties at hand want to enforce and want to regulate, it's going to be a long time. But eventually it will happen all of a sudden. And I think as far as my perspective as a marketer and a business person, I think it's important to take advantage of these opportunities. I always say in a bad economy is when I thrive the best because if it was easy, everybody would do it. And I do better when things aren't easy because 98% of the people are drifters and 2% live with that definiteness of purpose, which Napoleon Hill teaches. And this is an opportunity for the collectives, the schools, the lawyers, the marketers out there to have a definiteness of purpose and take advantage of an opportunity that has not existed like Mike did in 75 years in the NFL. I think a lot of people don't realize the opportunity that are truly involved, and they are more drifting and just moving and these are not only collectives, but athletic directors and sports lawyers and others that including regulators, that we have to take advantage of this huge opportunity that nobody wants to enforce anything. Therefore, you can maximize all types of different things that have never been available before with no consequence.
Well, speaking of trying to regulate, I mean, so Congress is getting involved, and each party has their own act that they're pushing forward. If the Democrats are pushing forward the SAFE Act, and the Republicans are pushing forward the SCORE Act. I don't know if you guys how in depth you've looked at these, but particularly interesting is how it might impact media rights. So I don't know, Mike, if you have any thoughts on how how that's going to play out.
Yeah, well, look, I think the media rights is like the best part of the story, which is there's just unbridled interest in football. Even the Friday night games are just exploding in popularity, and that's sort of like if you look at the NFL paradigm, Carrie, like just to boil down a very complicated system, but the national revenue was pooled, amongst 32 teams, local revenue. There's some expenses that are ascribed to some, but basically the way the NFL works is you pool national revenue, which is the TV deal amongst other national deals, and then you have individual deals for the local markets. And likewise in college, like be it the Big Ten, SEC, those are shared by the conferences. Now, like it's been reported that in the ACC, Clemson and Florida State, we're going to get disproportionate amount depending on the number of eyeballs. And I think it's a really interesting discussion because you want to make sure with these grant of rights that you keep as many of these teams in your conferences as possible. But you're seeing schools that became free agents. And I think the marketplace is still sorting itself out from there relative to the media rights, Carrie, have never been more robust. Lots of reasons for that, but I like to say it's the greatest sport in the world, so it's an easy reason. But as it relates to conference realignment, there's still more work to be done within the ecosystem. Some people speculate, well, we have two, conferences in 10 years, or, we'll see where that goes. Like right now you have teams like Cal and Stanford in the ACC. So the geographics are a little bit out of whack per se, but that's just, the nature of where we are right now.
Yeah, it's fascinating. This is another reason why we need something like LawSphere. Stuff is happening real time, minute by minute. So Dave, what are your thoughts on all the media rights?
I look at it a little bit differently because of the position and the experience that I've had very early on, concerned about distribution and protecting the rights of that content in distribution. There's a whole nother amplified opportunity that is not being talked about, not being regulated, and certainly not being monetized correctly by the biggest entities in sports, teams, leagues, and organizations. And it's the power of the future of content, which is the social silos created by post-production content. And so, although through distribution, we have concrete rights and licenses that will always be extremely valuable, you're going to see a transition of value from the distribution to the post-production. And that's because the individual player, the individual influencer that's related or relative to the content will hold more engaged audience that can be monetized. So they're stealing already a lot of the sponsorship and advertisement that used to go to the major networks. And so for those people that really understand what's going on, should be focused in on becoming their own algorithm more than becoming their own network. And by utilizing content in a perpetual manner to create a social silo that will continue regardless of the distribution rights, regardless of the platforms that exist or don't exist today, that when somebody loves Mike Tannenbaum, the GM of the Jets, and he's creating his own social silo, and somebody says, oh, have you ever heard of Mike Tannenbaum? And they say, like 7.4 billion people that don't, because about 2 billion people probably do or whatever. But the majority of the people don't know the three of us, no matter how many times you're shown on ESPN, that they then go down a Mike Tannenbaum hole. It's a rabbit hole. And the way that the platforms are built and the way that will be monetized in the future is that when someone starts eating Mike Tannenbaum's rabbit food, they automatically, without advertising dollars, without anything, will feed more of Mike Tannenbaum to the people that are interested in Mike Tannenbaum. And we're seeing this pre-chasm nature of post-production content, notating that the biggest people in the biggest stages create a total addressable community that is far amplified than somebody that's on an unknown stage with unknown people. And so when you're looking at these huge distribution deals and the rights and the leagues and the teams and the organizations, my focus primarily, because I'm a little bit longer thinker in a 20 or 30-year plan, is what do I do today to capture, modify, amplify, own, and perpetuate the social silo so I can become my own algorithm. It's one of the reasons I became chairman of Napoleon Hill Institute in the entrepreneur space, not the sports space, because I know how much money and time it will cost to build an engaged following like Think and Grow Rich has already developed over this 100-year period with Outwitting the Devil and other pieces of content. The NFL is synonymous to Napoleon Hill because it has built this huge community. The people that can take advantage of the post-production content and social siloing will have a huge opportunity to cannibalize these multi-billion, soon-to-be trillion-dollar media deals that are going to be put into effect.
That's fascinating. I hadn't really thought about it that way. That really does bring a different perspective to it. I guess so. The next thing I'd like to ask you about, I mean, with regard to content, is now that we've got AI in play, how is AI impacting content? I mean, is there a way that you got, I mean, what are you seeing as far as lawyers dealing with this in this space?
No, my thoughts are it's a tool, one that if it's used correctly could be, efficiency, time saving. But like anything else, it has to be used, in sort of like a very prescribed way. So, you talk to people in the legal profession, there is definitely some scale there. But you also have to make sure that it's not, replacing lawyers. It's there to supplement and to help.
Yeah, it can be specific on that. What I see and deal with a lot is AI makes humans more human. People were resistant of Westlaw. Justice Scalia told me that nobody, I repeat, nobody will ever do research on a computer. You need books. There's still lawyers and there's still books, but people do research online. And so AI helps you from 0 to 1. Where it's interesting is I think it actually helps lawyers make more money because the people that use AI to replace a lawyer, in my opinion, can't afford a lawyer. So instead of trying to figure it out themselves in some other fashion, they now have a more credible, fast, easier way to do an agreement, to create a template. But the people that are using AI for law to replace a lawyer can't afford one. The people who can afford a lawyer, now the lawyers have better tools like Westlaw, like AI, to provide more value and more profit for the clients and more profit for the law firm if utilized effectively.
So are we seeing any issues though with AI being used to alter content where maybe the players and whatnot are getting upset because it's being loaded up into, say, Gemini, and it's being used to reproduce images for of them to other people? I mean, how are you guys handling things like that, or what are you hearing about that?
Obviously, the copying of content and the transforming in the editing is so powerful today. And so the people who want to use the name, image, and likeness of others now has a greater power capacity to do so. So obviously it's going to be a much bigger problem. But on the other side, AI helps us to determine and to detect where to send cease and desist letters because it can synthesize so much data that you can actually use AI to say, who's using my name, image, and likeness, and get a very coordinated list to help protect it as well. So I think on both sides, it's force and counterforce, but AI is absolutely utilized to steal, cheat, manipulate, oversell, et cetera.
It's interesting today. I mean, sports law is really hitting the headlines. Literally, I opened up my email box and the first thing that was in there was an article that's on the cover of the ABA Journal called A League of Their Own. It's a whole feature on sports lawyers. And then the second thing in my inbox was from Bloomberg Law, and it was a headline about Jason Kroshak. Do you know him? Do you guys, Mike, do you know him? He was with Proskauer. He advised on a PE investment in the Buffalo Bills. And apparently Kirkland is courting him, and his reported compensation is going to be somewhere between 13 and 20 million annually. So
wow. Now that sounds like private equity to me. How about you, Mike?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
We got into the wrong game.
So suddenly you've got lawyers making football money, you know? What are you guys' thoughts on private equity in sports? Mike, do you want to take that?
Yeah. So I thought it was long overdue. In the NFL, 30, you have to have 30% or more as the primary owner. So historically, that was a way to keep sort of like the corporate dollars out of the NFL. What happened over time, just given the macroeconomic sort of like evolution of the sport, there's just not so many people on the planet that could write a check 30% of, you could do the math, $8-10 billion. So private equity became a really good sort of, opportunity for the league relative to these blue chip firms, the Arctoses and Aries of the world. They can only own up to a certain percent. I think it's 10% right now. And there's very rigid rules about, you can't have any sort of like say in operations. It's completely passive. Um, Obviously, those private equity firms are betting on the same sort of macroeconomic, wins that the NFL will keep going and rights deals and so on. And I think in our lifetime for the three of us, I do think we'll see those sort of like ownership, the rigidity of those rules become even more liberal, maybe down to 15-20%. Because again, as these values continue, there's just, not enough people that can write those checks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I also think we could take Green Bay as a good example of the future, that you'll just see teams go public. And now we'll be talking about, $100 billion valuation of a team because of the power and liquidity of being able to take a team public. And they'll be modeling right now Green Bay and how that's impacting today in the valuation and the operations. It'd be interesting as a GM, Mike, to see the differentiator of being a Johnson and Johnson employee as a GM of one of the most notable teams of the world compared to being the GM of the Green Bay Packers, where there may not be as much personality but more flexibility. Do you see the companies, Mike, going public? I mean, the teams going public like Green Bay?
I think we'll see that in another sport before we'll see it in the NFL. I just think the NFL would probably look at it from a position of strength, saying like we don't need to do that. But if you took another league, maybe one that's a challenger sport, it's really interesting. Could you imagine though, like just putting my GM hat on, like having to answer as a public company, why'd you do this or not that? I mean,
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
the
To a
jobs,
board with Dave Meltzer on the board going, what are you,
yeah,
an idiot? How
yeah,
could you trade him? There's
yeah,
nobody thinking. Mark.
yeah. These jobs are hard enough. My gosh.
Yeah, if you had
Yeah.
shareholders involved, yeah, that would just be crazy. That's a really fair point. Dave, you had made a comment to me about athletes investing in their teams, or like it was being like venture capital. Tell me about that. I'd never heard of this before.
Yeah, I'm working with the players, professional athlete community. It's an organization that's like YPO for professional athletes. And one of the issues is how can we fairly take investments from players? I know MLB's looking at it, taking investment from their players for different opportunities as leagues themselves and teams have their own venture groups in our incubators and launch pads. I know I work closely with Al Guido and Elevate and others that are clearing a line between the actual organization and their venture group. And I just see that it may even someday be part of their package equity. And
Amazing.
because
That's
of the
really
ownership, that some of the key players may actually want equity in a team or an option to invest when they retire. So there's a lot of different things that are, and I have seen and have been at least brought up into these different leagues, organizations, and teams that they're looking at today. Don't know where it's going to go for the future.
fascinating. Okay, well, you guys have taught me a lot today, and I really appreciate your time. And I hope that we can continue the conversation on LawSphere. And so hopefully we'll get some more people on the platform and we can develop some subgroups and some on these hot topics.
Thanks so much for having me. Best of luck. It's a great idea. I'm sure you'll do great.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you for joining us, Mike. I appreciate your support, and I'm 100% behind you and LawSphere as well. Thank you, Carrie.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, Carrie.